pension system. And as you said in our earlier off-air conversation, maybe we all are, because I was a journalist at the time. I didn't recognize what they were doing and the hole they were creating when they kept taking money that was destined for the pension system and putting it into the general operating fund in Springfield.
Right. And
well, we don't need to do that this year. We can defer that.
Exactly. Let's defer that, and because it's one of those long-term needs.
Right.
And I think the good news is, and the reason why I'm optimistic that we still have a chance to get some action before the election, is that across the state, and I spend a lot of time being everywhere in the state.
Right.
You can ask my husband. I'm not home often enough. But people are demanding that. People are saying, we understand there's going to be some bitter medicine in the short run, but we need to step up to our responsibilities. People do it for their own families at home. People are ready to have that happen on a state level. And even if we have to drag along some of the legislative leaders, not too happily. Yeah.
Well, I see Mike Madigan washed his hands of the pension reform or pension changes. I promised I'd never use the word reform, but I see he ducked it. Here's the other thing. It's not just us. Teachers' unions are treated differently downstate and in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
Pension systems are treated differently. School boards traditionally and are those partly responsible for where we are, because school boards in some of the downstate areas where, by the way, they didn't have to contribute and they didn't have to worry about what they were giving the teachers, because essentially the state paid for it when it came to state pensions.
Right. The teachers pay in their share, and the state picks up a large
Downstate.
share for the downstate. And let me be geographically clear, because from someone who's actually from southern Illinois,
right. Yeah,
I think you mean sort of outside of Chicago. But yes, absolutely.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And that has created some challenges. It means, particularly when you get to higher end salaries, superintendent salaries, that school boards don't feel in their own budget the long-term cost of those pensions. And that's why I think a gradual shift to having the school boards be responsible is a wise policy. On the other hand, we also need to make sure that as we move in that direction, we acknowledge that it might cause us to have to change how we fund schools a little bit, because there are some districts that just plain old don't have the real estate tax base to be able to fund a quality education.
There is so much inequity in the school systems. There are school districts that have surpluses.
Mm-hmm.
They have surpluses.
Well, and some of the school districts actually are smart to have the surpluses because the state pays its bills so late. So I won't begrudge them that.
There is so much inequity. In Chicago, as I understand it, there is a tax levy, is there not, specifically for teachers?
For the retirement.
For their retirement
that is my
pension.
understanding.
They contribute, right?
And the teachers all across the state contribute. Yes.
Everybody contributes.
Yep.
But in Chicago, there is a tax levy for teachers' pensions. Am I right or wrong?
That's my understanding.
That's what I
thought.
thought.
It's different from Chicago and the rest of the state.
Right.
So, yeah, and I don't. That's a difference that I'm not sure has a justification.
And now what's happened is, during this last session of the legislature, I mean, pensions are a mess everywhere. We understand that. But there was a suggestion, which I thought sent the Mayor Daley, Richard M. Daley, the last mayor, into apoplexy. That was the suggestion that school boards and cities and communities pick up the cost of teachers' pensions. A lot of the districts outside Chicago squawked and screamed, and wasn't it Tom Cross and some of the Republicans who wanted to do that, or no, it was Mike Madigan that wanted to do that.
Yes.
He thought that the school districts outside the city of Chicago should pick up the cost of teachers' pensions.
Yes,
and not leave it to the state taxpayers to pay that, which would help state taxpayers in some sense.
Yeah, so that, I think that's one of the biggest sticking points right now, and they're still working on it. The legislative leaders and the governor have continued to meet, and I'm hopeful that there's some room for an agreement there. The sooner we reach an agreement on pension, the sooner we can start saving money in that direction that is gradually squeezing out the rest of our budget. When we talk about our pension obligations right now, to pay up to that what we need to do, and to not underfund it for this year, we have to be cutting back in every other area. And the numbers continually move in the wrong direction. We have to pay more and more towards pensions as you look down the road of the budget. And that means that we're going to have to be more often facing choices of which mental health programs do we not fund, which school programs do we not fund. Things that everyone in the state would agree are a priority. We're having to move money away from those because of this underfunding of the pension. So the sooner we can address it, the sooner we can get our state back on track for the things that we want to be spending money on.
Well, but if you move to that system of those, I know I hate the term downstate too, but I've never found another way of doing it because it implies everything outside Chicago. I always hated it, but districts outside Chicago, if you move to that system, you know it's going to be property taxes, and I don't think the legislator's going to do anything about it. Legislature's going to do anything about it till after the election. I think eventually they're going to have to do that, and that's a property tax increase.
How we fund, that gets us to the bigger picture of how we fund education in the state.
Right.
And I think we do a particularly poor job of that. Our Constitution says that we should, as a state, fund half of the cost of education.
Right.
We don't come anywhere close to that. We don't come close to what most states do for their public school children. So we have a lot of room to improve there. I think I would like to see us move away from reliance on that real estate tax and more towards a reliance on income tax. One of the challenges is a real estate tax has a disproportionate impact on businesses depending on their success,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you have a business here on this street that we're on and you have a great year, you pay real estate taxes. If you have a rotten year, you pay your real estate taxes, and it's the same amount. And that makes it really hard to manage, particularly a small business. If we would move more of our reliance onto an income tax, then it would be based on how people are doing. If you have a great year, you pay a little bit more. If you have a rotten year, you're not paying so much.
Well, that raises the issue. Do you advocate going to a structured income tax?
I would love to move away from the flat tax and have a progressive income tax.
Yeah, structured, or if you will, based on income.
Yeah,
based
so that
on,
people who have more ability to pay, pay more.
Pay more.
Yeah,
I mean,
makes sense to me.
they've been crying for that. Now, why haven't they done it? I mean, why do people like Governor Quinn, for example? I mean, he was the one who took the risk and risked his political career, as far as I'm concerned, in pushing for a higher income tax, a state income tax.
Mm-hmm.
He got the higher state income tax. He won re-election. More power to him. But why wasn't he pushing to get away from the flat tax? I mean, the flat income tax.
Because that would require a change to the Constitution.
Well, it's not strictly a flat tax. It's a flat income tax, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So the challenge to that is that's built into our state constitution. It would take a constitutional amendment to move to a progressive income tax.
Graduated, yeah.
Yeah, so it would be take a little bit more effort to do, but there are people talking about that around the state. And it's a system that we're comfortable with on the federal level. I think it's a system that would work for us on the state level.
Governor Edgar proposed a referendum, a constitutional amendment, to swap property taxes for the income tax. We never got it.
I think there's plenty of room to be talking about that again, because I think, like I said, it would be a much better way to both support our schools in a statewide basis and and to be a little bit more responsive to the needs of folks, and particularly businesses, and how harsh that property tax can be, particularly in a bad year.
Yeah, and corporations pay a different rate. Anyhow, you've been very busy here, right?
I have.
I was looking at that, some of the information that Catherine sent me, and you're talking about new curriculum for math.
This is exciting news. Let me tell you about it. On Monday.
You're going to have a hard time making math exciting to me.
Well, let me try and persuade you. On Monday, the governor's going to sign a bill that I'm very proud of. We worked a great deal on this bill. It is going to allow us to establish a model statewide math curriculum that will be middle school through high school, that will encourage more study of math. Currently in high schools across the state, you have to study English for 4 years, math only 3 years. So if you don't like math, which I'm sensing might be your perspective.
I just can't do it. I don't mind it. I just don't do it.
Yeah, well, if you don't like it, you're likely to not take that 4th year of math. And then what happens is after a year of vacation from math as a high school graduate, you're going to be going on to college or going on to a career.
Right.
And both of those have math standards. We have across the state far too many students arriving in our community colleges not ready for college level math, and the same thing in manufacturing. Manufacturing increasingly relies on people who have math abilities. It's not grandma and grandpa's manufacturing line anymore. It's more of involvement in math, sensitivity to numbers, and there are places that want to employ folks who can be high school graduates if they've got the math ability. So what we're shooting for is something that will help more students leave high school with that ability to be successful in careers and successful in college.
What is left brain, right brain? I could never understand math. And all my sons, well, they were brilliant, and I don't mean that. I mean that sincerely. They tested very high.
Uh-huh.
But my oldest son, and I don't know about the other two, but they were all artistic, and they all went into the arts world and entertainment world. My oldest son was like me. He's now back in college, by the way, at age 50.
Good for him.
And now he said he finally understands math.
All right.
Well, I can't. I said, and not every business requires math, because talking to a microphone doesn't require math.
But what have we been talking about? We've been talking about pensions.
Right.
And to have, you really do have to have a basic level of understanding of math. If you don't have a basic competency in math, then you're going to look at the state budget and issues like pensions and Medicaid and say, wow, that's over my head. I can't deal with it. I can't have an impact. I don't have a voice to be heard. But I think it's important for everyone in the state to have their voice be heard on these issues. I would like to see more people feel that they are qualified to say, here's my take on the state budget. Here's where I think we ought to be spending our money. Right now, too many people check out of the conversation.
We should take a break and come back. We're talking to Lieutenant Governor Sheila Simon. We're going to go to some of your phone calls, but we got a couple of other topics I want to cover. We're going to take a break, and we'll be back with the Lieutenant Governor after this. I'll tell you a story. I didn't go to high school. I quit when I was 14. I was in the South. I was in Arkansas at a time. I grew up in Indiana, Evansville, Indiana. But my parents and everybody and relatives were in Arkansas, and my mother went there. Long story, not important. Orville Focus ran out of money for the schools in April. And I had just finished my freshman year, and I never went back.
You just took advantage of the
opportunity in the summer, and I went to work. And I worked everywhere. I don't mind telling you, there were some back-breaking jobs. I did a little picking cotton and chopping cotton and everything. I mostly did construction work because I had friends in it until they found out how old I was, and I always got fired. But as a result, when I got in the Navy, I later joined the Navy when I was 17. I got in the Navy and I got my GED. And I got my GI Bill, and I went to college. I went to Bradley in Peoria. You had to have 12 hours in each of 3 categories as mandatory, as requisites, you know.
These days, you can't afford to be wasting
Math was, I mean, there was, in the sciences, I did everything I could to avoid math. I can't tell you. I took astronomy, 2 semesters of astronomy. I think I took physical geography, I believe it was, and I took
anything but math.
home economics.
Good for you.
It was the worst, hardest course I ever took in college. I took interior decorating because I was an art major, and I took interior decorating. I was an art major and a veteran, and so they gave us a couple of breaks here and there. And I wound up taking interior design. And I thought, well, this is another way to avoid math, because if I have to do algebra and calculus or anything, I'm dead. I'll never graduate.
This is
And I took that. First thing you had to do was design your own new house blueprint. You had to do a full blueprint of your new house. I'm talking about exterior, interior.
Wow.
And then she had you get furniture templates and do layouts. You got graded on how well you did layouts, and then you had to go pick your colors, and then you picked everything right down to the pots and pans.
Wow.
It was the hardest thing, and you had a book. That was the hardest course I ever took. I said, all this to get me to math. I couldn't have passed math. I got a D in it, but I got past it. That's what I did to avoid math.
13 seconds.
On the FM dial,
Really pretty funny.
92.7 in the north, 92.5 in the west, 99.9 in the south, and the original 820 AM.
Chicago's Progressive Talk, AM and FM.
Here we go.
We're back. We're talking to Lieutenant Governor Sheila Simon. There is a couple of things you've been involved in. I really like this one. And you're advocating to establish college choice reports.
Yep.
Which means that you put it online, students, consumers, you'd be able to analyze the colleges. Would that be in-state and out-of-state, or just in-state?
It would be in-state. It would be public, private, proprietary, 4 years, 2 years. It would be, and I don't have a can with me, which is unusual. I drink a Mountain Dew every once in a while. It's not good for me.
We could probably arrange that.
But I know on the side of the can there's going to be something that tells me the calories,
right.
that it really has no good value for me. But anyway, there's a label there, and I know that same label is going to be on a can of Pepsi, can of Coke, whatever.
Right.
What I'm looking for is some kind of standardized information on colleges, on the basic things that you need to know on colleges that will help students select college, that will help parents know about colleges. And our daughter is just graduated from high school, our younger daughter, and I have to say, tracking down particularly cost information it's not something that's readily available on the front of every college's website. That's not something they want us to know, because it's a big figure. So if we make that information more easily available to students and parents, it's also going to be available to community members, who are the folks who eventually are the supporters of the public institutions and can help shape some of the policy and say, this is an institution that has an excellent program here. Let's make sure we prioritize that. This institution seems to be struggling. Let's address that. So I think a basic set of information on every school that's the same from school to school on their website, and also contained within state information, will go a long way towards making us better consumers of higher education.
I think that's invaluable. When I don't want to go into my story, but I knew nothing about colleges. to be realistic.
Mhm.
I got lucky. I mean, and ever since I got lucky, I've been a big booster of Bradley University in Peoria, private school, and I
Yeah.
had the GI Bill.
Uh-huh.
I wasn't necessarily worried about tuition, and my mother lived in Peoria, and I could sort of live at home most of the time. But I mean, I have people, friends of mine, who are struggling, trying to make decisions. Which college? What can we get here? What can we get there? Do they teach this? Is this a good place to learn this subject? You know?
Yeah.
I think it's a great idea.
And it's a great idea because what I envision for the state's future is that more and more of those students whose families didn't go to college are entering into higher education, because that's how we can get a competitive edge as a state. If we are a state that is educating more of its citizens, if we've got a workforce that is better educated, better qualified, whether you're getting a 4-year degree in philosophy or a 6-month certificate to get your CDL license, I want to make sure that more people are getting into higher education. And that means, by definition, we're going to have more people who don't have that background, who are starting at a real, at just the very starting line, and don't have a lot of access to good advice. This is something that's going to cost absolutely minimal amounts of money based on information that the colleges collect already, but really put that information in a format that'll be useful.
I'm curious. You think